Sir?
All right, now we're officially calling it to order. Staff and trustee additions, deletions to the agenda.
Staff has no additions or deletions, Mr. Chairman.
Move to adopt the agenda. Motion.
So move to adopt the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we're gonna start with our public comments. Don't have any general ones. I'm just gonna check these. Ms. Lumley?
Yes, I want to speak now and then on each individual one that pops up.
Go for it.
Good evening, board members. Last year, the county commissioners had a referendum on the ballot to dissolve the Lakeshore Hospital Authority. The vote was overwhelmingly approved by the voter. Why is this board disregarding the will of the people? I do understand you have to go through a legislative process, but you guys could also dissolve yourself and let it go forward. This board has had no plans. The hospital's been vacant 4 years, wasting taxpayer dollars. Currently, there's about 20 clients. All funds that are in the authority's name should be designated for an indigent care trust. Why is this board dragging out what needs to be done? As a board member, you should resign and let the county gain control. No need to sit here. You're not gonna lose any income because you're not paid anyway. And you'd have a lot less headaches. Resign, turn it over to the county.
Thank you, Ms. Lumley. Mr. Foreman, any general comments or you want to hold for the specific items?
If it suits your purposes, I'll just wait for the specific items because it'll be shorter that way.
That works. Any other general comments from the audience? Nope. All right. Let's go on to our unfinished business, Mr. Kinnon.
Yes, the first one deals with the conflict resolution notice given to the city under chapter 164. And I'll let Mr. Arline brief us on that.
You need to introduce him.
Harold Arline, he is our attorney that we've retained to help us with the zoning matters with the city of Lake City. He's from Tallahassee.
Good afternoon. I'm Terrell Arline. My office is in Tallahassee. I work for the law firm of Ansbacher Law, which is out of Jacksonville and Northeast Florida and various offices around the state. I was asked to assist the authority with the Lake City land use issues regarding the hospital in just broad terms. And, you know, I understand that the hospital's been a hospital for a long time. Even somebody said there was one back there in the 40s, but it's been operated since then. And the important thing from a land use standpoint is that was all prior to the city adopting zoning and comprehensive planning. As far as I can tell, they didn't have zoning until 1970, and planning usually came in the 80s and 90s. So it was operated as a hospital for many years before the city adopted zoning and planning. And what initiated my involvement in this was the authority received a letter from the city over the signature of the city manager, October 4th, that essentially said you've lost your non-conforming status because you closed the doors of the Lakeshore Hospital. And I looked into that and I did an analysis of the land use and the zoning, and I passed out 4 items. I just want to show you, and there's copies there for the public if they want to have copies of it. So the first page is taken from the property appraiser's website, and this is the parcels that the property appraiser says belongs to the authority that are involved in the hospital campus. And I understand that there's 2 lots on the side that are not part of the hospital, and we're going to be discussed tonight as far as surplus in those, but that just identifies the site of the hospital. Then the second page is the provision from the city's comprehensive land use plan, the future land use map. And basically the purple item right there above Lake DeSoto is the hospital, the campus. So, and the page that follows that is just the legend of what the purple means, and it's, you know, it's identified in the comp plan as public. The next page is a blow up of the city's zoning map for this area. And you can see that the hospital is partly in what's called RSF 1, residential single family 1. And then part of it is in what's called R2, residential office. And that you could see the other parcels that you're talking about, the zoning in there. And then the last page is the index of what the RO means and what the residential single family means. So I evaluated, you know, the zoning and the future land use designations of the property, and then learned that the authority had closed the doors, but had continued to maintain and had security and was in the process of trying to transfer the property to another hospital. And so it's sort of getting my head wrapped around the legal issue. I determined that there was no intent of the authority to ever abandon this hospital. The intent was always transfer it to another hospital. And the case law on non-conforming uses that's been around for many years is that in order to lose your non-conforming status, and let me just say that because this was a hospital and operated before the comp plan and the zoning, it is a legal non-conforming use. It's not governed by the zoning map and the planning necessarily. And the law is that you maintain your non-conforming status unless it can be shown that the owner intended to give it up. Intent, which is a high bar, and the courts are not finding intent very often. And a lot of non-conforming use claims have been reversed by the courts because the owner was trying to sell the property and was keeping it up and trying to sell it. It might have been a year or two while it was closed, while they were trying to transfer it. And the courts have said that's not abandonment of your non-conforming use. And so they have not found that. So I felt comfortable concluding that you had not, that the city's letter was incorrect and that you had not lost the non-conforming status with regards to the operation of the hospital property. And so I wrote a letter to the city in November on that. And a little while later, the city attorney called me and advised that the city was inclined to pull back the letter that was written by the city manager that said it was non-conforming use. And I was, you know, glad to hear that. And I said, well, so let's come up with an agreement that it's a legal non-conforming use and move forward. And apparently the city doesn't have hadn't decided to do that yet. And so that sort of left us in what I call legal limbo. You got the city having said that that you lost your non-conforming status, but then just revoked the letter without saying what that meant. And so out there on paper, you've got the city saying that you've lost your non-conforming use, and that's going to affect whoever your buyer is, because, you know, what am I conforming? Am I not conforming? And so that's what I call the legal limbo. And what do you do when you're in that situation? Generically, you got two. I mean, I guess you can live with it, but you can't do that. The second thing is you can litigate the issue of whether you lost your non-conforming status, and that's an action where you go to circuit court. You file what's called a declaratory and injunctive relief with the circuit court, and you get them to agree or look at it and say, hey, are we did we lose our non-conforming status, or do we still have it? That's one option. The other option is resolution with the city. And I am a mediator. I'm no longer certified mediator, but I've been a mediator for many years, and I believe in resolution. And I was the Bay County attorney for 10 years. And in Bay County, you got a bunch of cities. And we would have disputes with the cities over a lot of different things. And so we would use what this conflict resolution process is that was mentioned in the agenda item here. Chapter 164 is Florida statute. It's a section of Florida statutes that deals with conflict resolution, and it's directed to cities, counties, and special districts. And what the legislature is saying is, hey, before you guys sue each other, you need to sit down and see if you can resolve your conflict. And even if there is litigation, the court can say, go back and do the conflict resolution process. And so, knowing that if we wanted to go into litigation, if you decided to do that, which you haven't done at this point, that you would have to have gone through that conflict resolution process by state statute. And I also saw it as an opportunity to talk. The city and the authority to talk about these issues and see if a resolution could be reached. So the second solution to the legal limbo is the resolution. And so that's why I recommended that the authority write the letter, and it did. It adopted a resolution, I think, this last meeting. January 16th, Mr. Kennan for the authority sent a city to the letter requesting that the parties, the city and the authority engage in conflict resolution process. And I've done several of these as a county attorney, and I just sort of 30,000 feet, the way they work is you write the letter, you engage the process, they respond, then the parties pick some dates, and you have two types of meetings. The first meeting is a meeting with basically the mayor and the city manager and the city attorney, and then the head of the special district or the county, whoever the other party is. In this instance, it would be you, probably the chairman, the executive director as the manager for the district, and the lawyer, and they would pick a date and set. It's a public meeting. It's noticed. People can attend and talk about this issue about the land use and what's the way out and what's the solution. And I've done several of those, and we were able to resolve disputes with between the municipality and Bay County with those meetings of the small group of people, leaders, and then they would write it up and take it back to their board. I mean, it's not done there. The county manager would take it to the county commission, and the city would take it to the city commissioner, or it would come back to you as the authority of anything that came out of that meeting. And then, the resolution would be drafted and worked through that way. So that's the 164 process. I believe in it. I believe in resolving disputes. I think if people sit down in a room across from each other, most of the time they can come to some resolution, especially if there's a sense to work together. You can also bring in a mediator if you want to have a third party mediator to help do that. But I've never used one. I was able to communicate with the other side, and they were able to communicate with us, and we saw what we could try to work it out. And then if that doesn't work, the other meeting is potentially a meeting of the two boards to see if they can talk through a solution. So that's sort of how it works. And what I propose is, we've initiated requests that the city accept our proposal to initiate resolution. I haven't heard from the city about that yet. And so tomorrow I'm going to call the city attorney and get a sense of, are they going to engage in the resolution process? And I'll report back to Mr. Kennan and Mr. Williams. And then hopefully they will. And then we just schedule dates and we move forward and see if it can be, if the issue of the zoning and land use on the hospital parcel, at least, can be resolved. So that's all I have tonight. I've, don't really have any recommendations about what the solution would be at this point. It's just procedurally, I think that sitting down with the city, is a good idea. It's required by state statute if you ultimately decide to go to court. And, I believe in the process. I really do. And so, that's all I've got. If you've got any questions, I'm ready to take them.
Before we do any questions from the board, I just want to make sure we've exhausted any public comment. Real quick, if you don't mind.
Well,
By all means, do I knew before asking.
I'm a little confused. Didn't the city rescind the letter? Did they send you a thing rescinding the letter? Isn't that what I'm not confused. I believe Mr. Online or Mr. Kennan, I'm confused exactly who does what around here anymore. Asked Stu Loker, Columbia County Observer and the resident and taxpayer of Columbia County, introduce myself. That Mr. Online or Mr. Kennan asked that the letter be rescinded. And I believe that Mr. Online was contacted and the letter was rescinded. So if they rescinded the letter, I'm a little confused because this is costing me, the taxpayer, and every taxpayer in Columbia County money, which could be going to indigent care or paying Mr. Kennan's bills or something. Why we're still moving forward with this if the city did what Mr. Online asked them to do. And that's what my confusion is. The city hasn't sued anybody, the city agreed to rescind the letter. And it would appear from what I've read so far is that Mr. Online, I guess, is asking on behalf of the authority that forever that the city agree to whatever the zoning is. And I'm not sure if that, because stuff has to be approved, there's gonna be permits that are gonna be needed for whatever goes on at the hospital. The city is the, I don't believe that the hospital authority is like a school district and they don't need to be inspected. The city is on city land. The proposed clinic is not handicapped accessible. That's gonna have to be permitted by the city. There's a lot of things that are gonna have to be done. So I'm not really clear what I guess the authority is asking for right now, because Mr. Arline is representing the authority. And that's my comment, is really a question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Anyone else before we continue the discussion? Okay. Comments from the board?
As part of this, we will need a motion to appoint a member of the trustees and Mr. Williams, and obviously Mr. Harline and I to attend and have the authority to negotiate on behalf of the authority. A binding agreement cannot be reached in that process. An agreement, if reached, will be brought back before this board and the city council for approval.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Mr. Beal.
Mr. Arline, what is the timeline? Is there deadlines to this conflict resolution process? I mean, typically, does the city need to respond within a certain amount of time before we?
Well, the city attorney thinks that, he has additional time. But the city can respond and say, we don't want to engage, and then it stops. But typically what happens is the city will contact the one party that got the letter that says we want to resolve. We'll just call the city attorney or the city manager and they'll set up a date. And so I think the statute says you need to end this in, I think, 180 days. I don't remember the exact number right now. But usually what the parties do is they agree to their own deadlines. I mean, they've got to get people to meet. Could be quicker, could be faster, where you're going to meet, have a public hearing, have it noticed. So you know, what I'm gonna do tomorrow is call, Mr. Martin and say, you know, what's the city's position on this? How are we gonna move forward? Can we figure out who's gonna attend this initial meeting? And the initial meeting is not a meeting where the parties, it's not done at that time. It's just the lawyers and the managers of the two groups are talking about what a solution would be, and then they bring it back to their board. So I think you're probably talking, you know, I think we could do it 90, 120 days at the outside. But I think we could have these meetings if they could be scheduled, you know, in the next, you know, month or so. And, it'd be quicker, but that's, then it would have to come back to the board. You'd have to schedule a board meeting and, you know.
It would be a recommendation if the city doesn't respond to this and say, yes, we want to do it, like how, at that point, how long do we go?
Well, I mean, I think if we got a letter from the city that said, no, we're not going to engage in it, then the next opportunity, if you wished, would be to pursue the declaratory injunctive relief action, ask a judge, are we a non-conforming use? I believe you are. And we would expedite that. I don't have any control over the timeframes of courts and their.
I just know how long do we, if the city doesn't, if they just say, you know, if they don't say anything, if they don't respond and say, yes, we'll meet, no, we won't meet, we wait, we have another meeting in 2 weeks, and then after that, we have another meeting scheduled 2 weeks after that. How long do we wait if the city, it's a hypothetical, obviously, that the city doesn't respond to this conflict resolution process, how long would you recommend we wait before we go to the next step?
And make a decision at your next board meeting. You know, my intent is to ask the city attorney, are you going to, is your board going to do this? Now, he may say, I haven't scheduled a meeting with my board. And obviously you know, you got to have a meeting to discuss it because he can't make the decision to do it. But I think we should know by the next time the board meets what city's intent is. I certainly hope that they will take the opportunity to talk about these things, because it's important, it's a big, important issue. And, you know, I can, you know, I want to assist in trying to get it resolved if it can be. So I'm thinking you'll know in by your next board meeting, whether the city is gonna accept or reject the idea. And we may, if they accept it, we may know the dates that we might have these meetings. That's my hope.
And so I'm clear on it, just I want to make sure I'm squared away. The rescission of the letter does not say, is not them. What do you call it, advocating, I'm trying to think of the word for it. They're not saying that we're not non-conforming, they just withdrew their objection to it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They withdrew the letter. But when I asked, Mr. Martin, does that mean that the authorities hospital is a legal non-conforming use? He said, I can't tell you that. And
Right.
we're not gonna, I don't have the authority to tell you that. And the city has not done that.
Yeah.
So that's the legal limbo. You know, you were a legal non-conforming use. A land use lawyer coming in here and looking at it would have said that this is a legal non-conforming use because of the history. But then you get this letter dropped out from the city,
yeah,
which raised the question, and you got to have the question answered. And I'll tell you who, you know, probably needs it answered is anyone that's going to acquire the hospital property. You know, they want to know that, and you need to probably know it to pursue the deal. I'm not making a decision about whether you can contract or not without that information, but it's just, you know, it makes it easier to get it resolved. But no, that letter revoking the county manager's letter was not, in my mind, an assertion that you're a legal non-conforming use. And when I asked for such assertions, I didn't get it.
okay. Anything, Mr. Kennedy?
Bullard. Mr. Arline, bear with my ignorance, please. And Mr. Kennan, you too. I think the letter was received by the city on the 16th, which would have been, or excuse me. Yeah, the letter regarding the proposed resolution was received last Thursday.
Yeah, we
16th,
emailed it to them,
emailed it.
right?
Doesn't have to be, I thought the statute said it
It
had.
was
to be
also,
sent
it was
certified.
also sent certified,
Okay, but the clock doesn't toll until they receive a certified mail, correct?
probably. yes.
Probably. In your discussions, and I noticed that, not to correct you, because by all means, you're a lot smarter than me, but the letter that the city originally wrote was on November the 24th, not November the 4th, but which has been right at 3 months now. And, in your discussion, I noticed that this letter not only sent to us, but sent to each of the council members, the mayor, and the city attorney and the city clerk, and the assistant city manager. In your discussions or talks tomorrow with Mr. Martin, because I guess I'm very optimistic about this being resolved, could you maybe ask if the city would accept a letter written by you and Mr. Kennan detailing all of the legalese that needs to be put in the letter to resolve this issue as quick as possible, rather than us going through, due to the fact that Mr. Rosenthal sent the letter on January the 6th, rescinding at your request of the letter that you sent on December the 6th. If the terminology is in there, and if we can get the mayor, each of the council members, the city manager and the city clerk and the city attorney, everybody that received that letter to sign off on that letter, would that be acceptable?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Almost
always.
I've always buttoned it up by bringing it back to my board and having the board hear what the resolution was from the small group. And then the board saying, yeah, we ratify that. And that's just belts and suspenders probably. You know, if the city felt like the city attorney's opinion and the city manager's opinion was sufficient, if the buyer thought it was sufficient, if Todd Kennan, as the attorney of the authority, thought it was sufficient, you know, maybe you could go forward with a closing.
And your opinion?
I look at it as belts and suspenders to bring it back to the board, but you know, if we don't have the time to do that, then I'll confer with Mr. Kennan and with the city attorney and see if such a letter, you know, would be enough. To your point about having the letter,
Yes,
that's
sir.
a good idea. And we could do that. We could, you know, I could draft a letter that says, here is the solution to this issue. The city agrees that the authority property such and such is continuing non-conforming status. And, you know, the city accepted that. If that's good. I mean, if you could take that to the bank, then, you know, do it.
No. Not getting the cart ahead of the horse because of the agenda that we have tonight. Would this board be better off to delay any other possibilities regarding the properties on the campus until this is resolved?
I don't think so. From what I understand is that the authority is considering transferring the hospital piece, which
Yes,
is
sir.
shown in that red. The other two pieces are separate
Yes, sir.
and they're designated residential office, which I think authorizes medical facilities to already be there. And so I think it's just the issue is focused on
the letter that was written October 24th regarding the hospital.
Hospital parcel. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
So if I understand this correctly, Todd, we have to make a motion, authorize So we don't need a motion for the letter, Mr. Kennedy, but we have to do a motion for you all to
You
meet.
need a motion to appoint Mr. Williams and one of the trustees
Okay,
and the attorneys to attend and negotiate on behalf of the authority.
so we need a volunteer.
I'm retired. I'll be more than happy to attend.
I make a motion that we appoint trustee Kennedy as well as Mr. Williams, Mr. Arline, and Mr. Kennan to the small group to negotiate with the city.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. So we'll have Mr. Kennan, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Kennedy with you, Mr. Arline. And we just one more time, Todd, we don't need a motion for him to write the letter stating what Mr. Kennedy discussed, but yes, we believe the zoning needs to be.
That potentially will come later. We need to get the city's position first, because if they just tell us no tomorrow, then the letter does no good. So
Gotcha.
it may be that they agree, then we can talk with them about that.
Okay.
But yeah, we don't need authority at this point. I don't think.
I think I go with his instincts.
Okay. Any further discussion on that item from the board?
Well, on that, because we're gonna we have a meeting in 2 weeks on the 10th,
Yes.
and I follow your suggestion there, Mr. Chairman. If they say, yeah, we would be more than happy to resolve it through a detailed letter written by you, Mr. Arline and Mr. Kennedy, can we go ahead and authorize you to do such, the two of you? To kind of keep this thing going down the road?
Chair, I would tend to agree simply because I know just from conversations that have been had, then even in these meetings, Meridian would more than likely be going to the legislature looking for funds. And I think if it could be expedited, the city's willing to do it and write something that Meridian and we are comfortable with, get that process started before session starts in March. I mean, I don't know if you need a motion or if consensus from the board, but I would agree if consensus is well enough.
Well, maybe the consensus of the board is if the city's willing to consider that letter, the consensus would be that we would draft it, and it would obviously ultimately have to be approved by the trustees in a public meeting.
Is that a motion? I'll second it.
I was like, wait, isn't?
I'm in favor of that for consensus.
I am myself. If we could get something drafted. Okay.
If we get that positive vibe, we'll go ahead and begin that process. Again, it's ultimately to be approved by this board.
After it's signed.
Well,
Accepting the letter.
essentially, the contents would need to be probably approved at the next meeting to make sure that the trustees, am I correct there, or?
Y'all are the attorneys, you'll know what needs to go on that letter better than we do.
Yeah.
I feel like I could write a letter in coordination with you and Mr. Williams about what it is the authority needs as far as, the city to back off from its non-conforming argument so that we can move forward. That's not brain surgery. We can do that, and then it'll be out there, and the city can mull it over and see if they want to go along with that approach. I mean, honestly, I think it's the city's making it clear that it's in revoking the letter from the city manager that the parcels have lost their non-conforming status, revoking that opinion and saying, including clearly that those parcels are legal non-conforming use. That if the city will approve that in some fashion or supported it, and that might mean that the city commission has to agree with that. I don't know how the city attorney wants to handle that. But I can certainly write it up.
Yeah, the only reason why I mentioned about the signature from the council members, because this letter on the 24th from Mr. Rosenthal was sent to them to each of them. And to the mayor, at that time, Stephen Witt, but it should be the new mayor and any new members of the city council, I would think, as well as the clerk and the assistant. But, and Mr. Chairman, I would like to just take a second to apologize to our representatives from Meridian for coming up here again for the umpteenth time, and I appreciate your patience.
All right, we've exhausted that one. Let's move on to the next item for discussion of possible action. Approving the requirement that all costs necessary to transfer the property from the authority by gift or sale be the responsibility of the receiving party, Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, we were looking at having just a blanket requirement so that each individual transaction would not be handled differently and possibly drawn out as to who's gonna pay for what, have what responsibilities. So if you approve this, then everyone that may receive a building will know upfront that those costs will be borne by them.
Okay. Before we comment,
On that, yeah.
I was gonna bring that up. I know, Joel had a comment on that.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Joel Foreman, County Attorney, Columbia County. Thank you all for being here. I see your full agenda. I'm gonna try not to make it more laborious than it needs to be. Although I am an attorney, so I'm trying to. Did want to, on this point, to sort of assist Todd on this one. It's not that unusual, particularly when you're donating or gifting property the way you're contemplating tonight. To ask the other party to pay those costs, and the county does that routinely. If we are looking for a donation, or even if we're acquiring property by purchase, as the governmental agency, we typically will pick up those closing costs and transactional expenses. So wanted to offer a voice of support to that. Also wanted to, since we're talking about expenses and who's going to carry what water and things like that, wanted to remind you guys, and I'll probably remind you a couple more times before the night's over, that, you know, y'all's taxpayers overlap precisely with the county's constituents. And so when we talk about divesting property from the authority to another agency, to another entity, just remember that whenever you're giving it to the county, you're just giving it to the people who help pay for it. So, you know, we're in the business of providing roofs over the heads of different agencies, different outfits. Third Circuit is just one of many. You know, we provide facilities for sheriff's office, state attorney, public defender, you know, go through the statutes. Every one of those roofs is provided by the county where those places sit. So we have a need for more space. We will make good use of more space if we can get it from you guys. We just want to do it in a way that works for everybody. But in terms of this particular agenda item, I think it's well founded and should be supported.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any other comments before we get going? So Todd, are you hunting a motion?
Yep.
On that one? Are there any comments from the board on this? I agree with it. That would make everything a lot simpler.
Chair, I agree. I think that it should be a blanket across the board. If we're conveying property, whether by sale or gift, that the receiving party would be responsible for those closing costs. So I would make a motion to approve the requirement that all costs necessary to transfer property from the authority will be the responsibility of the receiving party.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve, to approve the requirement that all the costs necessary transfer property from the authority by gift or sale be the responsibility of the receiving party. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. No further discussion on that one. We will move on to the next agenda item, discussion of possible action. I'm just gonna say number one, and I'm gonna point to you, Dale.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The two bullet points which are listed under the Lakeshore Hospital, The first bullet point, we are simply trying to make sure there is an understanding of what property is to go with the hospital when it is transferred. And then the second bullet point itself is the transfer agreement. So the initial bullet point, the one that's on the bottom of page 1 of your agenda, we are simply trying to make sure that we're all on the same page with what is being transferred. And the reason that becomes important, if you look at the property appraiser's website, parcel 11789, which includes the main hospital, block 111, which is now infamous, but it also includes a part of the parking area over at the two-story women's center, as well as the two-story women's center. It includes another parking lot just to the east of us. And so we wanted to make sure it was understood that some of the portions of 11789 were not intended and never been intended to go with the hospital. So before anything is finalized, we just want to make sure that everybody's in agreement with that. The other part is we never did discuss the 3 parcels over to the southeast of the hospital. This is one of those 3 contains the helipad, which has been discussed. Those 3 have been identified. They have not been declared surplus that I could find. So at some point, if you're going to transfer those, you will need to find that those are surplus property. And if you look at the attachments in the agenda packet, sheets A1 and A1 clearly shows those 3 lots. And A2 shows you the carve out of the aforementioned 11789, just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So the main thing with the first bullet point, Mr. Chairman, trustees, is we want to make sure that we're all on the same page with what's going with the hospital.
And do we need a motion on that, Dale, to verify that these parcels, the 1, 2, and 3 are not transferring?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, this doesn't change anything that we negotiated at all with Meridian. But when we start identifying parcel numbers, particularly in these older sections of the city where they don't follow block lines, they don't do that in the city in these older places, that we need to make sure we understand what is being transferred.
Are there any public comments on this before we?
Lawrence Barrett, president of Florida Gateway College. So I'm just trying to clarification, Dale.
Yes, sir.
On the parcel next to the women's club, a women's center
North.
that parking lot, how much of that parking lot is totally going to the hospital?
We intend for the entire parking lot in that block to go with that building.
So all the women are right there.
Yeah.
All right.
You'll notice in the last revisions, red line, exhibit A, I believe it is, we less and accepted those out of parcel 11789, just as they're referred to in the agenda. And those will obviously at some point need to be identified by survey.
Show me that, Todd. I'm sorry, I can't.
B14,
What is it?
B14.
That's fine. Gotcha, okay. So this, there are two motions in here. We need to do one to verify that 1, 2, and 3 are not transferring and then declare the other. A2 surplus, yeah, attachments A or the attachment shown A2 surplus.
Yeah, I would do a motion to confirm that when we convey the hospital parcel, that the areas listed 1, 2, and 3 in the agenda
Mhm.
are not to be included with the hospital parcel.
Okay. Any wishes from the board or discussion? Mr. Kennedy?
But on A1, Mr. Williams,
Yes, sir.
partial 1, 2, 2 does go with the hospital, correct?
They do, and those have not been declared surplus that I could find.
Okay. But, and 1, 2, 3, or excuse me, 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 4, they go with the hospital too?
They do, yes,
On this exhibit A1,
and they have been part of the negotiations from day one.
okay. And then on exhibit A2, 1, 2, and 3 do not go.
That would be correct. I was just simply trying to show the parts of 11789, which were
Where's-
not part of it.
Where's lot 111 on here?
You see that upper right, it's kind of difficult to see, but if you're looking at the hospital
Yes, sir.
and you see that area which would be northeast, in other words,
Ye-
northeast of the hospital up there in the corner,
Northeast. Talking about right
Yeah,
here.
it should, no, it should be the flag right there.
Then that's number 3.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a third piece on there. I think that's what you're discussing. Is that where the?
There's only 2 parcels that are colored in though. on the-
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, but the red that he's describing is the, I'm pretty sure isn't that where the fellas have the ambulance? Building?
Yes, it's up on that far right
Yeah,
corner.
they're talking about cutting that flag off. That doesn't transfer with the hospital.
Plus, it adjoins those 2 exterior lots, which the authority bought some time ago. Those small lots.
Can you turn to page A2?
Yes, sir.
Would lot 111 be between the 2 that are shaded? Right there, just south of Northeast Leon Street?
You take northeast Leon,
Yes,
cross northeast Methodist Terrace,
yes, sir.
cross through the next intersection,
Yes, sir.
that block to the right
The block to the
or
right,
to the south,
to the south. Okay, that's lot 111.
block 111. That's the one that went through the
Right,
reverter
exactly.
issue and
Right.
et cetera.
That's the one that had like 100 parking spots in it. Doesn't look like it.
That's, you looking at this one?
That one there.
Yeah.
That's lot
I
111.
believe that's lot 111.
Mhm.
That's something that he's got shaded open here.
Yeah, on here is right here.
I got you. Okay, for Brenda. Got it.
Got it.
With on it.
I think we hit our public comments already. On this one. I got Mr. Barrett came up.
Chair, I'll make a motion to declare parcels 32-3-17-13124000, as well as 32-3S-17-13123000, and 32-3S-17-13122000 as surplus property.
Could you state that again? I'm sorry. I'll second that motion.
The motion in a second to declare said parcels surplus. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Once again, just want to make sure I'm clear, we do need to confirm that these are not.
Do a
transferring.
motion that from parcel bunch of zeros, 11, 7, 8, 9, would not include in any conveyance of the hospital building of those properties described in 1, 2, and 3 of that agenda item.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for,
Make a motion to state by the attorney.
Absolutely. Second.
motion and a second to verify that we are not conveying items 1, 2, and 3 with transfer of property to Lakeshore Hospital Authority. Word. All those in favor say aye. Here.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, trustees, the second bullet point is the actual agreement for the purchase and sale of real property from Lakeshore Hospital Authority to Meridian Behavioral Health Care. As you have been advised in the past, this agreement is in substantial completion. Copies have been provided where you can, of course, ask any questions that you may feel necessary. If it is the Board of Trustees' wishes, you can act on this tonight. It would be a subject to provision, subject to us coming to some resolution with the city on the outstanding zoning issue. And I think the appropriate motion would be something to the effect that they would authorize you as chair and they would authorize Mr. Kennedy as secretary to execute the proper agreement, subject to a resolution of the zoning issue with the city. And I would include in that, just as a recommendation, that they have the right to make any minor changes and modifications as long as they don't change the material content of the agreement. But that's your decision, so.
And then the two of the sort of last items would be the personal property, not getting the cart before the horse and the size of the hospital. That part will probably be, we'll agree to agree. And we're selling it to them as is. If there's any personal property they wish to retain, we'll identify that, issue a separate bill of sale. And any property that they don't want, we'll surplus it and probably auction it off. Like they may not have a need for the operating table. They may have a need for some desks, filing cabinets, general hospital type beds, depending on what their uses will be. But the things that they don't want or need, I think there's some rehab equipment in there. But we would just identify what they do need, do a bill of sale. And that would take care of the personal property, and then what they don't want, we'll surplus and auction. And then the only other issue that was been floating around was the helipad. Some discussion lately that maybe they didn't want it. It appears now that they may want it, and I've drafted some language that we'll insert in there, that they would be agreeing to fix any damage, hurricane damage, renew the FDOT license. They would be required to maintain the helipad and all applicable licenses. They would allow first responders, et cetera, to use it at no cost or expense. The requirement to do all of those things would survive the closing of this transaction. And in the event that the purchaser is notified that the city of Lake City or Columbia, or both, and Columbia County no longer requires the existence of the helipad, then they may discontinue to maintain and operate the helipad with our consent. And that consent essentially would be confirmation that those two governmental entities don't need it anymore, either because they built another one on the east side, or they're just not going to use it anymore for whatever reason. And their attorney indicated that the language which I inserted today at no cost or expense and with the consent of Lakeshore Hospital Authority were okay with them. They accepted that language.
Before we do comments, is going to check for public comments on this item. Do you have any? Okay. Mr. Kennedy,
I got it.
Not on this.
Yeah.
on this item, yeah,
This item is the sale or whatever it is of the hospital authority. That's the one.
This is the approval of the agreement, for the purchase and sale.
Yeah. I had seen to that. A couple of things before I begin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing me. I believe you run the meetings. Very disconcerting. I don't know, I'm gonna consider it harassment of Mr. Bullard. Because when Mr. Kennedy is recognized, he always addresses Mr. Bullard. I've never seen that in the legislature or anyplace else. But he wants to hear what Mr. Bullard has to say. Mr. Bullard has something to say. He's a grown man. He's pretty experienced, ran for Congress and everything else. I think Mr. Bullard can speak for himself. And I just appreciate that if you would leave Mr. Bullard alone. I don't know, if the next time we do an agenda, it would be good to put numbers on these things, because everything here has a second bullet point. So when the manager says we go to the second bullet point, nobody's gonna know what it is if you looking at the meeting. And everybody puts numbers and letters on things, except the authority. This is to approve the agreement for purchase and sale, I believe it says that. And this is on an unnumbered page of the agenda, because we don't number pages in the agenda here. But I believe that's it, attachment B1 through B12. But the agreement is not for purchase and sale anymore. I don't know how that got missed. It's for the conveyance of the property. Isn't that correct? So I don't know if the agenda is right and the agreement's wrong, or if the agreement's wrong and the agenda's right. It would appear that they both should coincide so the public knows what's going on. But we pay people to do these things. The second thing is, as far as approving the agreement, this has nothing to do with my friends at Meridian. I am totally opposed to this for every reason that's been mentioned in the past. Mr. Kennedy has brought up 100 times, if not once, that he's flagged the streets of Lake City, and all the business owners are in favor of having Meridian there, the ones that he's spoken to. And he's refused to mention any of them. They shouldn't be top secret. I mean, anybody can say anything that they want, and I'm not accusing him of making it up. But I think he's a board member. There's no reason for anybody to speak anonymously if they're approval, if they agree with behavioral care. You've heard people come to this meeting time and time again, talking about the quality of care that Meridian gives. It's not good. I've had school superintendents tell me, people from the colleges tell me, people in schools tell me, people in the behavioral business tell me that Meridian care is substandard. Yes? What is that noise?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. is
You
all.
you can't see the clock. It's right in the middle of Dale's head. You just bear with me for.
I will bear with you, please just finish your point.
Oh, I can't see it. It's right there. It's my fault.
I know, don't worry about it.
That's what made a noise.
I didn't know. It's the first time I ever heard that.
Continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So for all those reasons, this board has never investigated the quality of care, what people have said about the quality of care that happens in Meridian. The failure to not hook kids on drugs. You've never asked for anybody from the community to even speak up about what they know about the care of Meridian. And, you know, I call Mr. Kennedy affectionately the razor wire Don. He even joked about having to put razor wire around that facility. It's a dog whistle that people do not appreciate the benefit and the necessity of behavioral care. And this whole thing is just wrong. And I'm opposed to it. I know other people are. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There any other public comments on this before we continue our discussion? Okay. Oh. Let's see.
I'd like to hear from my fellow board members.
Well. And day I went through it myself and I don't take any exception to what I read this afternoon.
I'm
for the agreement. I mean, we've been over this agreement 100 times. It was pretty much what we've requested of Mr. Kennan to get done. So I haven't seen anything new.
I'm right there with you. I'm ready to get it done, move forward.
I've read it several times.
Right.
For the last 2 years, all of the additions, and I would like to, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the agreement for the conveyance of real property, Lakeshore Hospital Building from Lakeshore Hospital Authority to Meridian Behavioral Health Care.
We need to include Dale's or consider Dale's recommendation subject to resolution of the city of Lake City zoning.
Yes, that's.
And the minor amendment.
And the ability for the attorneys to negotiate any minor amendments, not changing the materiality of the agreement.
Right, and put in there to have it resolved with the city by the end of next week. I'm teasing Mr. Arlen.
We'll strike that one.
He does a lot of that.
Yeah,
Your,
absolutely. If I need to state that,
your motion includes that
all of
language,
the above.
and I will second that motion.
Thank you, sir.
The included language.
There's
Can we have a roll call vote, please, Mr. Chair?
absolutely. So the motion and a second in front of the board to approve the agreement for purchase and sale of the Lakeshore Hospital Authority building. What was it? It was okay, subject to allowing the attorneys to make the minor amendments and
Resolution of the zoning issues. with
the
city.
resolution of the zoning issue with the city. Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the physical therapy building, Medical Plaza North. Let's see, Mr. Kennan, give you that first.
So we had a proposed professional services agreement submitted by Palms or in response to the RFP. For the most part, did not have any objections. You have the red line version. And essentially, the red line versions were to give the authority the ability to look at different options. The first one is in paragraph 1. Their agreement asked for automatic renewals for 2 successive 2-year terms. I redlined it that it may be renewed for additional 2 2-year terms by mutual consent of the parties, unless otherwise terminated or amended as provided herein. Just something for the trustees to think about. Generally, there's a hard time limit that if you don't notify the other side of your wish to terminate, you have the automatic renewal, and then you're stuck with it for 2 years until the next renewal period comes up. So this is just a way of getting together prior to the initial term and agreeing or not agreeing to extend it rather than there being automatic. You'll see a few little typo corrections. The original agreement had LHSA. We just changed that to LSHA. The paragraph 8.1 can be terminated without cause upon 360 days notice. I added the words or if funding not available. For some reason, us being a governmental entity, if we didn't have the funds as the entity, we obviously couldn't pay our obligations. Paragraph 10, we inserted Mr. Williams as the contact person. Paragraph 11, we're suggesting that venue be in the state courts of competent jurisdiction, Columbia County, Florida, and the parties expressly waive trial by jury. Paragraph 14, didn't see any situation in which arbitration would be applicable. So we struck that, made some typo corrections on number 18, changing school board to LSHA. Number 19, I believe, is a provision that must stay in the agreement. That's the E-Verify. since we are contracting them to provide services on our behalf, they should comply with the Florida statute on e-verifying the appropriate conditions of their employees. See, nothing on A. On B, just food for thought. They had that they make no reasonable, or they make no repairs on the building. Had talked with administration at one time about maybe having a small provision for minor repairs. So you see the suggested language for you to consider or agree or not to agree with. Made it clear in paragraph 3 of Exhibit B that they would be responsible for cost of electricity, water, and sewage to the clinical office space. And then me and Mr. Powell added on Exhibit C, last paragraph, added subsidies received in the event that there is a termination by Palms without cause in the first 3 years. So those are kind of, it's easier to see some alternatives when they're in this fashion, so I'd leave it up then, answer any questions on how to proceed. Palms may want to tell us that we agree with this, this, and this, and don't agree with this, and that may make it easier.
Thank you. Anita Rimmer with CEO at Palms. I've read through the suggested changes. I don't have any real issues except for the renewal periods. For there not to be some specification in there as to when it would be renewed by, puts us in jeopardy. I mean, we've got staff hired, we've got patients to see, schedules booked. So we need some notice. So that's the only caveat there I would see that we would need to work together on to make that happen. So that we're not just, 3 days before the renewal period, we decide not to continue services. That's, be fair to our patient.
You have a suggested time period that we would need to confer before the renewal date?
I would say no less than 6 months prior.
Okay. And I don't have an issue with that notice requirement, seeing that it would give everybody time to make appropriate planning.
I'm struggling because I know I want to open this up for public comments, but I do appreciate you doing that. Let me,
Just in case there's other questions.
yeah, let me pull this up for public comment, real quick. Ms. Lindley, I know you've got one.
Yes, I did. This has come before the board before to have somebody do something. And they would ask for money. And you guys said no, but this time Palms is asking for money. They're asking for a subsidy. If you look across the street, there's the Columbia County Health Department that could provide all the services that the authority clients need, plus other ones. They don't have a full-time doctor, but the authority could take dollars and have a full-time doctor there for the authority clients. Why does Palms Medical need another facility when the one at 5 Points is 1.5 miles away? Is it possible for her to answer my question?
Public comment.
Well, I'm asking for an answer on my comment.
If she so decides, she may.
There was only one request for the proposal that was fulfilled, which was Palms. And this authority has had plenty of do-overs. How many times have you said, oh, we're gonna do another one. This is why we're doing this, is Mr. Bill felt there was another need for another one. And so you guys probably should do a do-over. This is a very costly expenditure that the authority would have to undertake. And you, board members, have taken an oath to be good stewards of the finances. And if you read the material, it's not $100,000, it's not 200, it's not 300. Look and see how much money is actually being spent. And I forgot to bring my copy of the agreement But I had a question about the liability policy. It states that the authority would have a liability policy. I didn't read that Palms would have a liability policy. If someone happened to slip and fall, we've rented the building, but it's a Palms client, and we turn around and get sued, Morgan & Morgan's here. So that needs to be looked into, and I hope you guys use wise judgment. And all these other things are in conflict about the land zoning and that this should just be put on hold and not agreed to tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Any other public comment? Mr. Welker? What did I say last time? I'll take a chance.
Take a chance.
I'll take a chance.
Take a chance. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As Ms. Lemley mentioned, the health department is right across the street. The records received from the health authority. From the health authority, from the hospital authority, it's certainly not the health authority. Shows that the health department was not contacted. At all. That's where we do things in writing, as Mr. Allman pointed out earlier in the meeting. I don't know why the health department wasn't contacted, but I'll get to that in a second. Ms. Lemley mentioned the distance from the authority to Palms at 5 points, whatever that is 1.2 miles. Bonnie Valley Transit Authority provides transportation. There's no reason for anybody in District 10 or anybody in Lake City that can't get to Palms a mile, 1.2 miles from here, to call up Swanee Valley Transit and get a ride. That's what we pay them for. That's what, and you see that Commissioner Ford is here tonight. The county commission gives Swanee Valley Transit Authority money to transport people primarily to medical appointments. That's the purpose. You guys are just oblivious to that. Gail Williams should certainly know something about that, as he was the county manager of Columbia County for quite a few years. You have a clinic right across the street, which you are willing to pay taxpayer funds somewhere around $3 million to set up a new health clinic, when you have a health clinic that provided primary care right across the street. You could walk there in 1 minute. I don't understand. And that money, $3 million, would pay for a doctor and an RN. I researched this. Nobody else here did, that's for sure. A good steward of Lake City, Columbia County's money. Would pay for a primary care physician and RN, because everything else is there, for at least 10 years. That's another reason that this agreement should not be approved. Nowhere at any time did anyone from this board, the authority manager, the attorney, the accountant, and financial advisor, Richard Powell, he's everything, he's been in this for 30 years, explain how the authority is going to pay Palms Medical for its losses. Says you're gonna pay them 800, I just bear with me for another 30 seconds or so, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Nobody in this board can tell me that you're willing to sign a contract tonight where you agree to pay them for their losses at almost $2 million. Yet nobody knows how these losses are going to be figured. The other final thing I have, Mr. Chairman, is that Gail Williams and this board has been talking about for quite some time a new client agreement to the LSHA Hospital Authority. You can find that on the table when you walk in. Everybody knows that. How can you approve this contract not knowing what the new client agreement is going to be and what impact that's going to have on the finances of the LSHA Hospital Authority? Maybe the Powell could tell us that. And maybe somebody could tell us, or maybe you could, because this is a board issue, why it's not approved He runs the meeting. Why it's not approved before this contract is approved? And that's what I have. I am totally opposed to this, Mr. Chairman. It makes no sense. And you've left all these questions unanswered. Mr. Powell looks
Sure.
like he did the RFP and his
Sure.
I
whole thing
appreciate it.
stinks and
Appreciate
needs
it,
to be
Mr.
investigated. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Stu.
You took a chance.
I took a chance. All right. Any further public comment?
No.
All right,
Can I go again?
no.
You guys do do-overs.
I know, I love you, I appreciate
I
it.
tried.
Thank you,
Brian
if you,
kidding me.
if you would return to the podium in case anyone has any other questions for you. For what it's worth, I was kind of curious about the $1,000 repair thing, that sort of thing. I know we tried the triple net thing with the hospital and that worked out pretty terribly for us, so. Honestly, normally I'd say, no, it makes it be a triple net lease, and now I'm like, no, we probably need to keep an eye on the asset. So, for what it's worth, guys, I agree with that one.
I have one question for Thomas.
We don't do that here.
Yeah.
He's no better than I am at this meeting. Everybody else.
I can,
What we'll do is I'll ask Mr. Ford if you have a question. Go ahead.
I just, one of those, if Palm's going to commit to keeping the other two clinics open if they open this clinic here, being they have one, from what I hear, a mile and a half away.
Go for it.
Yes, we plan to stay in business in Lake City and all entities.
Further on that, I'm assuming that you guys have probably looked at this area and gone through a game plan over the next 3 to 4 years, done some level of projections where you feel that you'll be successful at this location. They do it for a living.
You just asked to get a CNA agreement, to get a health
I
assessment.
understand. I understand. Any comments from the board on the agreement?
Sure, I've got a few. I'm not quite ready to approve the agreement tonight.
Right.
I'm in favor of doing it. I mean, if you listen closely, one of the commenters said that the health department provided
Yes.
those services. They don't do that currently. So I think it is something that's needed in this area. I'm in favor of doing it. Got a little bit of heartburn with the repairs and maintenance. And I don't know if we could maybe figure something out where we renegotiate the lease after 3 years of operating or write it into the lease that I don't know how I want to say this, but part of the profits be retained in a fund that would replenish the patient care fund and or possibly go towards future repairs, maintenance, any of those type of big ticket items over $1,000. And I'm not saying that I think Palms would wait and order all the light bulbs at one time, so it comes out to $1,110, but
I understand.
we got to have some sort of oversight on this. And again, maybe, like I said, a portion of the profits are reinvested to replenish the patient care fund that will be helping to pay for the patients that qualify and possibly go into replacement enhancement of building or equipment. I mean, and I don't know how long an x-ray machine lasts, but in 10, 15 years, are we going to be on the hook for replacing the x-ray machine whenever it's time to be replaced, or the chairs in the waiting room, or I know that sounds trivial, but it could add up pretty quickly. And I just think that we should have a little bit of foresight and figuring out some sort of way. And I don't know about liability insurance, about us maybe having a policy as well, but would it be possible? This might be an attorney thing for them to also have liability insurance. It'd probably be less expensive for them to have it than it would for us anyways. Those are some of my concerns.
Lease other locations in terms of the insurance. I'm curious about that myself.
So let me go back to a couple of things.
Okay.
So first of all, we're a nonprofit entity. I'd encourage you all to stop by one of our offices in Lake City, go look at it. Tell them, you know, Anita sent you, let somebody show you around. We're gonna maintain our facilities, whether it costs $1,200 or $12,000, we're gonna maintain our facilities. So our money, the money we do make goes right back into our offices, goes back into provide more services, goes back into expand our footprint in the service area. As far as the maintenance and things like that, after this agreement is, the 3 years are up, that's what we're talking about, going back to the table to renegotiate. So I think those things, to me, at the end of year 3, unless it's a new roof, the wind is busted, that's on us. But I think that would be for us to go back to the table and come back to a new agreement at the beginning of year 3 is what I think we've been talking about. As far as liability, so we're gonna cover our insurance, but you all, you know, to protect yourself, not an attorney, but I would say you need to protect yourself too
Sure.
for your building, because a lease building, they're gonna come after both of us. They're gonna come after you all as the owner, and they're gonna come after us as the leaseor or leasee.
Yeah.
So that would, you know, that's how we typically structure. We carry umbrellas for all of our properties. So I'll let that really answer your question, but I think we both need to have insurance to protect.
Yeah, we have to maintain liability as the owner and obviously fire damage because it is our, and will remain our building.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the Palms is a unique organization in that, they're designated as a federally qualified FQHC health center. And as such, that they have federal court relief on big liability claims. They're,
Or malpractice.
but for malpractice, yes, so the kind of people talking about Morgan and
Yeah,
Morgan.
the slip and fall, that's unfortunately.
So exhibit B4, where it says Palms will not be required to carry general premises liability.
Right.
So we could just do away with that altogether. You would be comfortable with that.
If our insurance agent would agree to that, like
I was
that's the
gonna
problem. I
say-
don't know that we can do
I
that,
don't know if they can do that. I think
because you all own the building.
It-
But you would have some sort of liability
Umbrella.
cover, okay.
Yes,
yeah, we got the dirt.
we'll have something, so if it was our fault that the mat, you know, that's a good example, that the mat was crumpled up and the patient fell on that, and that's us. If the sidewalks broke and somebody trips on that, that's you all. Right?
At least that's my understanding. Sorry,
Yeah, I'm not an attorney,
And
so I'm just telling you
and I'm not an
liability.
insurance salesman, so maybe it's not general liability, but you all will have some sort of liability insurance, and I would just like for that to be expressed in the agreement. That's just me. And again, and what I was saying, part of that, you know, reinvestment, I mean, I would hope that this would be successful and that we could one day go to the south end of the county and replicate what we're looking at doing here. So I mean, I don't want this to be a one and done thing. I think that it would be good for Columbia County residents, and I think that it could be something that could be possibly expanded in the future after I'm retired from this board.
We could tweak those points and have another version that we can collaborate on in 2 weeks at our regular board meeting.
Mr. Cannon?
I apologize. Anita, what's the last name?
Remember?
Remember, that's right. I guess I've been completely listening to everything and I understand it. And Commissioner Ford brought up a question that you answered and I appreciate it. But if Commissioner Ford doesn't mind me asking the reason for that question, because I'm curious.
I just didn't understand why you'd have 2 mile-and-a-half apart.
I mean, like.
And why would you keep that one open if you're gonna open this one?
Yeah, the one up at 5.
I mean, and my question referred to, y'all agreed to compensate them for any losses, from what I understand.
Yes,
If
sir.
they're nonprofit, how do you calculate the losses?
Yes, sir.
or if there's not going to be any loss.
Yes, sir.
If that's the case, now, it should be stated, or either taken out of the contract,
agree.
there's not gonna be any losses, so we don't have any complications.
I was hoping you say they closed the one on the west side because I go by there about 5 times a day and it's busy, it's full. But anyway,
And-
no, I
And we
appreciate
do
your
not have any help.
south
in the
of
south
town.
of
No,
at all.
you're absolutely right. And I'm like Mr. Bill would like to see it get there. And now, do you mind me calling you Anita?
No, no.
Anita, your 2-page Palms Medical Group budget proposal. Were you involved in submitting this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Mr. Powell, help me out here because I know you can too. But I've looked at it, examined it, and your fiscal year is a lot different than state, county, and ours, but it's from June the 1st till May the 31st, correct?
Yes.
Okay. On your proposed budget, on your medical, on your total revenue, from your experience, which I know you have many years, how close are you in the ballpark with these figures for year 1, year 2, and year 3?
I think we're pretty close.
Pretty close.
You know, it's gonna depend on patient demand. It's
Yes,
gonna
ma'am.
Depend on us getting the word out. It's gonna
Patient
depend-
demand, word out.
Yes, sir. It's gonna hopefully depend on the hospital authority helping promote our services and
Exactly.
getting it out there.
Yeah.
So,
And then on your total expenses on the page 2, are these pretty close to?
yes, sir. I modeled it off for, after, 2 of our other health centers that have been open in the last 2 years.
Okay. So then in looking at the bottom line figure, which is what I was looking at on the net income parentheses loss, you're showing for the first year from this balance sheet that it'd be about 935,000.
Potentially, yes, sir. So,
And if the authority was on the hook for 850, that'd be the maximum.
right,
Okay, and then in year 2, you're showing your bottom line loss being 671,000. And the authority's bottom line would be that figure, not the 750, correct?
well, the contract
Or,
says
I mean,
850.
850. But it'd be the 671.
Contract says 850,
Okay,
but our projections are the 671.
and we would go by the projections or from the contract? Okay,
But if I can clarify,
Yes.
it's up to 850.
Yes.
It's subsidized, so
to-
it ended up, you only lost 600,000, it wouldn't be 850, it'd be 600.
Right. It would be
That's
up
what-
to the 850.
that's what I'm saying. So it would only be, again, hypothetical based on your
Yes,
budget
I'm
here.
sorry, I misunderstood.
It would
what
be
you're saying.
671
Yes,
that the authority would have to pay.
sir. Right,
And then in year 3, you're showing that your net income loss would be 147,000, meaning that's all the authority would have to pay, not the 200, which is in the contract.
correct. Thank
So
you.
we're looking at a 3-year loss here of 1.668 million.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
I understand it just takes time to,
Yes,
build
ma'am.
up that clientele.
Yes, ma'am.
Paying, 100% of their salaries on day one and.
Right. And then the last question that I would ask you is that knowing what we did tonight in our last agenda item, giving the hospital to Meridian Behavioral Health, would you, any of your staff or any of your clients have concerns about coming to the campus being that located that close by to Meridian Behavioral Health?
So Meridian and Palms have been partners for years. We refer patients to them daily. They refer patients to us daily.
So there would not be any,
I feel like, I won't speak on their behalf. I feel like Palms and Meridian have been excellent partners and
Right.
have helped each other's patients time and time again.
thank you, ma'am. I don't have any other questions. Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion on that?
Well, one more. Have you looked at the Fort White area at all, but the Southern Columbia County area?
We've looked at Fort White a couple of times. We opened up an office in High Springs. After looking at it one time, so we have our High Springs clinic and our Branford clinic, which is about 15 minutes from both entities. Fort White's hard. There's no grocery store there. You're looking at, there was a
Utility.
provider there he lasted about 9 months. So it's the payer mix, it's the amount of people that not live in Fort White, but stay in Fort White. So we've had experiences before of opening up office that aren't really destination towns, and we struggle harder with those offices than we have places like Lake City or Gainesville, where actually people go to that town first. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's, High Springs is one of, or not High Springs, sorry. Fort White has been one of those towns that there's a lot of people who live there, but they work outside of there and they go somewhere else to go to the grocery store. They go somewhere else to go to the restaurant. So.
All right. Is there any further comment? Move on to the next item.
I would like to ask, Mr. Kennan, can we have this added to the agenda meeting
Yeah,
for the
have it.
10th of February?
Yeah, have it at our next monthly meeting
Great.
and we'll work out any.
I will not be able to attend next, the February the 10th. I can send someone. They may or may not be as well versed in the contract as myself, but I'll definitely respond to the contract, stuff in writing. I'm sorry, I'll be out of town, so. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Get the agenda in time, so maybe, I mean,
Yeah, I've sent that, with your red line to our attorney. I expect it back tomorrow or Wednesday, but it sounds like we're gonna make a couple more, changes, so. Yeah, if you could get those back to me as soon as possible, and then we'll make sure I get it back. I just wanted to let you all know I wouldn't be able to be in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Neal. Help me on this. Dale, I want to ask you, on this next, did we somehow cover this second bullet point? Discussion and possible action on attachment C1 through C14, because we did touch that.
Yeah, basically y'all have just remanded that over to the February 10th agenda.
Okay. So I'm gonna move us on to the next item, the discussion and possible action. Approve an offer for Mayo Pharmacy and Wellness Center.
Yeah, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, here is the explanation for this being on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
I think everybody recalls that Miss Mayo submitted a proposal. She was interested in using the physical therapy building. There was some talk and discussion. I won't rehash the issues about what we were told we could legally fund and not legally fund. But the long and short of it is that we never officially terminated any discussions with Miss Mayo. Now, admittedly, I've not had any conversation with her, but my thought process is that when we go through these buildings, if there is an opportunity that is left that we could potentially offer her, whether she accepts it or not, we could at least do that. But again, we did not, she has never received we are ceasing negotiations or we're terminating any discussions like we did with all the others. And so it was never resolved. It has still been an open account. And as we go through these buildings, should the opportunity arise, I think it would be well worth a discussion to see if maybe we can't help her in that location, whatever it may be.
Any public comments before we start discussing this? Is that you, Mr. Logan? Yes. Take one more chance.
No, there's not a good chance to take. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to be up here so many times. Guess this is a bullet point on page 2, number 3 or something, no numbers. I'm so angry over this, I'll leave out the expletives. Miss Mayo has been treated like a piece of crap since the beginning of this. Now, some people might not know who Miss Mayo is. Dr. Mayo, a well-respected person in the minority community. He's not white, he's black. You notice this board is all white, And the last time this authority had a minority member was when Audrey Washington was here, I don't know, was that 2012 maybe? When she retired, I don't really recall. I don't know why Miss Mayo was treated the way she was. I spoke to Miss Mayo about this. This would appear to be big substance for an article. Lake City is 50% minority. I guess maybe when you live in something long enough, you become colorblind. Go to Columbia County, when Mr. Williams was there, affirmative action, when we did, was supposed to have affirmative action. The only time you would find black folks in a position of authority was when they were leaning over a shovel for the most part. This county is, this racism in this county has been endemic since before the Civil War. Now I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. This board, I was in this room and I heard it on the YouTube. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for broadcasting these meetings. That Miss Mayo was told that she had some sort of opportunity to do business in the PT building. I heard it. Molly and whoever it was, White, Molly and Mike White were not treated the way Miss Mayo was treated. Miss Mayo came, whether or not you agree with what FMAU does, she came with a wealth of support and backing to do what she anticipated, what she wanted to do, which was open up a pharmacy in this part of the county. She wanted to do that with the city, a driving pharmacy. Yet she was treated horribly. Now all of a sudden, out of clear blue sky, I look at this and we're gonna approve an offer for a male pharmacy and wellness center to lease suite 101. Well, what happened to the PT building? Just disappeared? Was she ever contacted about it? Just put in a public records request and get the correspondence to Ms. Mayo, which I'm sure is which I know is non-existent, according to Ms. Mayo. This board should be ashamed of itself. I can't begin to tell you how disappointed I am after covering this authority. I'm done. Since 2006, that this board would act that way. And this time, yeah, Mr. Bull, I'd like to know what you have to say about it. This is just wrong. You're giving us scraps. And just one more thing, if I may, Mr. Chairman. One more thing, it's gonna be real brief, is that the health department has an office in Fort White. So primary care could go to Fort White once or twice a week as part of your plan. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Any other further comments from the public on this item? Okay. Oh,
I will agree with everything Stuart said. And, you know, it was a disgrace for what this board did.
thank you, Ms. Dudley.
I got some.
Yes, sir.
So I haven't been to the last couple of meetings,
State
but
your name.
my name is Garrett Morrison. But has everything been, have you guys already decided what you're gonna do with these facilities? Are we still in discussion about that?
The facility there, as we come up, we've got the remainder, the medical plot, women's center, the admin building. We're gonna go through all those as we continue on.
Even the main building, or is that already decided?
Just voted on it.
Yeah, that's what I was making sure of, that did pass.
Well, the court, once we finish with the agreement with the city, we have a small zoning issue to get.
Okay, well, I was just, I came here, this ain't necessarily my feng shui, but I came here, like I told you guys, on kingdom business, telling you that the Lord is in need of these facilities. And that there's a work that the Lord wants to do in this community, and this would serve as a great, like a lighthouse, a beacon, and it has the ability to do a lot of things, especially like what we're talking about with the all people here, where it's located. It's located where minority, majority, with white, blacks, everybody has an opportunity to bridge a lot of gaps and to cover a lot of hurdles. But I just want to tell you that when you make your decisions, make sure you make them with clear conscience, because you guys have come into a position of power for such a time as this. And that I know there's a lot of pressure behind you guys, but just make sure when you make your decisions that you make them in agreements with a clear conscience of what you believe to be what's right. Because I feel as though the Lord is going to have his way one way or another, whether it's that or not. But I'm just here just to tell you like, hey, that's gonna be, that at one point, that's gonna be a lighthouse. That's gonna shine for the Lord in this community. It's gonna bring a lot of people together and bridge a lot of gaps. And this area is a hot spot for all activity, for all walks of life. I've seen it up close and personal. And like I said, I'm here not because I feel qualified to be here. I'm here because I'm being obedient and I feel as though God wants to have his way here. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comments? Sorry. All right. So we, just so I'm clear, Dale, we actually don't have to take any action on this item, right?
No, pretty much become an informational item after we started tabling things.
Okay.
But I do want to plant the seed and ask that you at least keep that in mind. We may or may not be able to find something to at least offer.
Okay. Any thoughts from the board?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Kennan and Mr. Williams, we have had discussions with Dr. Mayo in the past, have we not?
In the past,
Yes, in the past,
about the PT building.
right, about the PT building. But no contract was ever, I believe a contract was provided to her, but there was no final feedback from Dr. Mayo regarding that contract.
I do recall that Miss Mayo in one of our meetings basically said that's not what she was looking for. She
Right.
was looking for a contract that would provide funding and et cetera. And of course, you got to weigh that with the legal opinions you received where we were being told that we could not spend those funds on a private business.
Yes,
The building lease, if you were to just take it and lease it to someone and you were to charge the least amount of lease you could justify, it's going to be around $11,000 a month.
yes, sir.
And so when you start putting and building numbers in of that consequence, it's hard to get a business started.
Correct.
Hard to get a business started with that much overhead.
And then we had talked about the Suite 101 option.
But of course, that depends on what may
Yes, sir.
happen here.
Correct.
So
Correct.
all of these things are connected.
Correct. Thank you, sir.
Any further comments on the item from the board? I don't have anything else. I think we've exhausted it. We just keep our eyes open on it. Moving on, the two-story, Women's Center, Medical Plaza South. Discussion and possible action. Dale, I'll ask you to lead me through this one.
Okay, sir. Of course, the two-story women's center is just to the west of the hospital and it does face and is visible across the lake. For the most part, we were down to a single entity as expressing interest. That was the county. Recently, Florida Gateway College expressed an interest. They have submitted additional material that's part of your agenda packet. They are looking for an opportunity to bring medical classes to a downtown campus. And they find that this campus, the Lakeshore campus, has opportunity for that. I think Dr. Barrett is here. Should he wish to speak, but your decision, what you've got to decide tonight is of the two entities, which one do you believe is the best fit for the two-story women's center? Now, the one thing that I would comment on is this is a large campus. I think there's room here to accommodate everybody and everybody's needs. It's going to be up to you, though, to determine what option is the best option for each of those needs. But if we look at these two things, both important, both needed, I think they can both be
Declared surplus.
Yeah, and when you decide what it is you may wish to do, this is another property that has not been declared surplus. So you would have to declare the women's center, the two-story women's center as surplus prior to agreeing to transfer any ownership.
Okay. Right now, we're just talking about declaring it surplus. So before, right, so then, okay. We'll deal with that issue first, so I'm gonna do,
Are you gonna do public comment?
I'm gonna do public comment first.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
It's all right, it's all right. I'm checking. Ms. Lemley, you've circled yours.
I'm definitely in agreement to declare this surplus property.
Okay, at this point, it's just about surplus. Any public comments on declaring it surplus while we're on the topic? Okay. Thoughts from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to renew my motion that was made back on March the 11th, 2024, but it failed because with no second. I would like to move that we declare the Women's Center, the two-story building surplus property.
All right. Got a motion? Any comments or second?
I'll second that if we include the other little parcel there that's listed as well, the parking lot. Those two parcel numbers.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're correct, Mr. Brandon. I'll add that. Mr. Beal, not Mr. Brandon. Mr. Beal, will agree that would be parking lot number 12104. And I don't see the other number. Mr.
11,789.
Say it again.
11,789.
There you go.
001.
11,789. Yes, both those parking facilities. To go with that women's two-story building.
All right.
I'll second that.
So a motion and a second, any further discussion? Make sure, okay, all those, in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes, 11,789 and 12,104 are surplus. On to the next item, discussion of possible action, approval of one or two options for the Women's Center deal.
Again, this goes back to the designation of who you think best should receive this building. Obviously, the Circuit Court Administration has requested this building from the very first submittal. So did Florida Gateway College. Every subsequent request for proposal since the county has submitted, making that same request. Again, I think the way you should look at this is both of these uses can be accommodated on this campus. Which one best suits those locations is something you'll have to decide after discussing it with the people who will occupy it.
All right. I'll open this one up for public comments, Ms. Lemley.
Yes. There may be space for both. However, I think that it should be given to the judicial circuit because of need. And Dr. Barrett said before, it would need to have renovations done. And he said sometimes it was much easier to get money for a new building versus renovate something. So I don't even think that should be considered. I think it should be given to the county and acts because of accessibility. And let the college take a vacant piece of property and have something built right to their specs. Or maybe they could check in with Meridian, because Meridian's not gonna need all of that, and maybe they could get space from Meridian. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lemley. Mr. Loker?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think we've all seen Hamilton. I think the fairest way we know about Hamilton to decide this question. Dr. Barrett is president of the university. David Krause is the county manager, somewhat comparable positions. I think there should be a duel. And the person that wins gets the prize.
Their swords.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Loker. Mr. Foreman, you circled this one.
Yes, sir, I did. Again, thank you, Mr. Chair. Wanted to sort of articulate the business case for the county from the perspective of our shared constituents, our taxpayers. Third Judicial Circuit pays about $63,000 a year to lease a facility all the way out on Turner Road for court administration personnel. Where's the courthouse, guys? It's right here. right? But their court personnel and their administration is located miles away. Don, you live out there. It's not easy to get out on 90, okay? Putting these guys up here is efficient from that perspective operationally, but let's talk about finance. Third Judicial Circuit is paying this lease, right? Oh, that's great. That's the Third Judicial Circuit. We are about $40,000 of that nut. Columbia County is. So every county in the circuit has to throw in their little bit of money. We got the most people, we pay the most money. So your constituents are paying $40,000 a year to lease a facility clear across town. This one could be given to the county. That 60,000 goes away. The county's gonna pay whatever's necessary. We know we've got to renovate that elevator. We know we've got to bring up the appearance of the building. We know we need the parking. County's prepared to spend whatever it takes to get that building where it needs to be, and then hand the keys to the Third Judicial Circuit so that they can do what they need to do to offer a more efficient court service to our constituents for their money. So you'll save the $60,000 a year in rent. You'll get a new, updated, renovated building. You'll have that building in full use. You'll bring more people to the downtown area, which maybe can help our downtown businesses. Kind of telegraphing a question I think I'm going to get from Mr. Kennedy based on the question he asked from the folks with Palms. I don't believe anybody with the county has any issue being next door to Meridian. We certainly understand government services are the way they are. And there's a possibility, as I said before, we provide the roof over a lot of different agencies' heads. If we have this inventory, we can make other decisions about how the county operates. We can move county administration over here and we can put court services over where county administration is right now, which is right next door to the courthouse. So it just solves so many problems. Every single consideration, if you choose to give this to the county, benefits your taxpayers. Every single one. You're putting the building to use, the renovations are being made, the lifetime of savings that'll be realized by the county from not having to contribute this $40,000 a year to a remote facility. It just, everything ticks all the boxes in terms of the business case. We think it's an obvious choice. It's why we've consistently put in. It's why we have said we'll be prepared to invest our own revenues and our own funds to get this building up to snuff. And we've not asked you for anything other than the deed. So we would ask you to consider that this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Barrett, I'm saving you for last on this one, but is there any other public comments on this? Yes, sir. Sorry, I don't have your.
My name is Philip Fowler. I'm the general counsel for the Third Judicial Circuit.
Oh. Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
Want to thank the chair for this time to speak and the authority for considering us for this long. Judge Olin and Mr. Heidovitz came to you back in January to propose our residence in the Women's Center building. I'm here tonight to reiterate that request and to supplement Mr. Foreman's comments by saying we are still very much interested in the Women's Center building. We want to work with the county on seeing that through. Our last discussion of this with the county or with the authority, we did not have the lease yet. We have since entered into that lease, and for the authority's consideration, it's a 2-year lease right now from 2024 to 2026. There is a 4-month termination, so getting out of that lease wouldn't be too burdensome in order to take this opportunity. So we are still very much interested in space. We want to work with the county and consolidating our footprint and saving taxpayer money as proposed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
I have one
Any
question.
questions? Yeah.
Were you present today when the court officials came here to survey this building?
I did not take the tour. No, sir.
Okay. So, but have they given you their opinion about this building?
We are looking to consolidate our footprint in whichever way it would come out. We want to, we rely on the county for our facilities. So
Okay.
If the county is willing to engage in that discussion with the authority, we are willing to go along with that.
And you Two, we'll get the question that I was hoping to give Mr. Foreman, as far as any of your staff members, judges who may have to come on campus here, would they be in fear knowing that what we just recently did as far as with the hospital, the main campus, the main portion of the campus being given to Meridian for psychiatric facility?
I don't think that part of our plan at the current time is to bring, say, a judge or a JA over to this campus facility. What we're talking about is the court administration
Right.
employees. We still are interested in this property. We think we're, almost move-in ready.
Right.
We've considered OIT for the Women's Center. Now, with this building, we're not quite so sure about the cost that it would take to house us here.
Right.
That's something we'd have to work with, obviously with the county and with the authority, if that's the decision. But as far as the Women's Center, that one has been more considered. And we think that's a better fit for us as far as there being no tenants in there currently. It's a standalone place. It wouldn't require shifting around other entities for that position.
Correct. Of course, your judges are currently going to the Michigan Street address for Baker X, where they would be going over here to a much more secure facility.
Yeah, I suppose there's likely a potential for, even a courtroom for such, so.
Correct. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Do you want to go first? I was getting ready to point back there. I'll take either. I'll do Mr. Kraus or I'll do Mr. Barrett.
Thank you very much. Just gonna keep it real short. I did not go today when the courts was there. This was not our first time visiting the building. We actually looked at this building back when we first requested it, walked through it with the judge, walked through it with the court admin, brought our facilities maintenance people, brought Kevin Kirby over to look at the facility. So we have a fairly good idea of what it would cost to renovate the facility. Dale gave us an estimate, so we know what Dale's estimate was. So we're familiar with that. The other issue I wanted to let you know is court admin is growing and continue to grow. Right now, they are running out of space. They are cubicles and conference rooms. The least space they have, yes, it's a fairly good sized footprint, but it's not enough for the positions that have already been added just this fiscal year. So they need to find some place to go to because they are busting it. Thank you.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
if you don't mind me, you are aware that the county is currently leasing a building behind here for the clerk of court, the storage facility.
Yes, we actually used it as a pet shelter during the hurricane.
Correct. And that is a climate controlled facility,
It is.
which could be converted to several offices also.
Yes, in fact, we we had to repair the air conditioners because they weren't working.
Okay. And that, I didn't realize that was part of the lease, but the lease
Well, it
agreement was,
wasn't, but we did it anyway.
oh, well, good. Well, thank you, because the lease agreement is only $120 a year and the authority is paying the water and the electric for the building. So it's a pretty good deal.
It's been very good. I wish we could have gotten the clerk over.
And it's
there.
up for renewal, I might add too. So,
We have not been able to get the clerk there for a lot of different reasons. The clerk still is interested, but again, that building is right now, the biggest thing in the building for people to move in is getting rid of the rolling file
Right.
cabinets and the large metal stuff that's in there. When we first leased the building, there was some hospital stuff that was still there that had to be addressed before we could
right.
move into it.
I understand he's changed the locks and he's the only one with the key now, because when they tried to go in it today, they couldn't get in because Mr. Swisher had the key.
And we changed the locks basically when we made it the pet shelter during the hurricane.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Kraus, are you familiar with this facility? Were you on this tour? Or have you
Yes.
been in
This building or
Yes,
the other building?
This facility?
I've been in this building many, many times.
In terms of its use for the county. And
Yeah, I've been in this building. I didn't come today. Again, I was tied up with other things.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't able to, but I am very familiar with the building.
Didn't the county once own this building and then they
Used
sold
to be
it to
a
the
jail.
I was gonna
authority?
say, yeah.
Right.
It used to be the county
But they
jail.
sold it to the authority.
Yes.
It was
Gave
given
it.
to the-
Oh, excuse me. Yeah.
Given.
Oh, okay. That's even better. Deal.
Historical thing, no.
Yeah, a
the
picture of
county
it out
gave
in the
it to-
lobby.
I didn't about.
You visited.
But yeah, so no, I wasn't on this tour, but I can see, I can see this being promoted in offices, yes.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I think Mr. Foreman mentioned was it could even be move county administration over here and free up the annex if you needed to for court admin. But I think the ideal situation from the court admin side, from the judge's side, from the court admin side is the 2-story.
Yeah. Been too many judges in Columbia County.
It's standard.
Let's say there's 2 of them, but I don't know.
Yep.
Excuse me?
Just 2, right?
No.
Just 2 county.
County judges.
Yeah.
There are
Sorry.
a lot of other.
Plus,
judges.
plus
Yeah,
five,
yeah.
plus 5 equals 7.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Crowe. Mr. Barrett,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Dr. Barrett.
That's all right, that's fine. Larry's fine too. I just wanted to let you know that, I didn't know tonight was gonna be a sales presentation.
We
And,
lined you
I
up
mean, I
behind
can
some
do the
killers.
Sales presentation and do all that for you tonight, but I think stand by on March of 2022. We proposed to take over the Lakeshore Hospital, the main building. And I believe Mr. Kennedy had suggested at that time, when you didn't accept our proposal, that we would look at other real estate, and the thing at that time has come. I would also remind the board of my sales presentation, if we had taken over the hospital, sorry, regardless of Meridian, we'd be in there and be full operation with 400 students there. Because we like to get things done. And I think that's what I would say to all of you tonight. I have a proposal before you. We get things done at our college, and we get them done quickly in the right way. And we educate people. Many of them are served by this hospital, the few that are served by the hospital authority. So at this point in time, I'll take questions from you. I mean, I can go throughout my whole proposal and so forth. I've looked at both buildings, the building and women's center 4 times. We've had inspectors, engineers. And regardless of whoever gets that building, there's going to be significant renovations required. And the taxpayers, for all of us, to keep that in consideration. As the county or us, it will be significant and not so much savings in the long. So I'll take any questions.
Dr. Barrett, the plan would be to have classrooms and social type.
Yes, currently, as we would look at the plan, we plan on 2 potential new academic programs in healthcare. And once again, we do have that potential, so the decision will need to be made soon, or we'll do it at the main campus. And we'll have to engage in those kind of discussions on the main campus. So it would be massage therapy and X-ray technician program. Those programs would maximize at 16 students by accreditation, both of those. But the people that would want to get into those programs would be about 75 to 80, we anticipate. The reception areas on both floors would act as classrooms for each program of study, and those offices would act as the didactic of laboratories where those things would take place. And we've already looked at the reception area, and those are not load-bearing walls, so they could be removed. Key consideration of that building, there's about 12 mini heat pumps that need to be replaced. They all from about 2011. There's a lot of drain issues, and the roof we have not been able to look at.
You had a chance, out of curiosity, to assess this
Not as
lovely
detailed.
facility here?
Ideally, if we're asking and we're doing the sales presentation, it'd be much easier to take both buildings, as sort of the county had mentioned. This would act as a classroom building, and that would be solely for the lab work for the students. So that's why I left it open-ended for all of you in my presentation. And to answer Mr. Kennedy's question regarding Meridian, I'm not going to comment on Meridian, but I will comment that the college would not have a problem next to it, and that we would probably provide training, because at Meridian they have mental health care people, and we anticipate that we would probably be doing a program for them as they employ what they say is 150 people.
So you, as far as you know, and you can't speak for your trustees, but you don't think there would be a problem with having your staff and our
We've already
students
talked to the trustees, yes. We've talked to
here
trustees.
on the same campus as Meridian?
Yes.
Okay. On your proposal here, Dr. Barrett, on the X-ray technician program, is that already in existence?
No, it isn't. Those are both.
You're waiting to have approval for that?
Yes.
And when do you think that may be?
Well, as I mentioned in the thing, if we got approval, we could get this going based upon repairs and so forth. The first class of those 75 students, we would anticipate fall of 2026, with the programs actually starting in January of 27. Because it takes about a year to do those programs for accreditation.
And the same with the massage therapy.
Yeah,
program.
same thing.
And the same with the CNA, which you currently
CNA we
have.
Currently have.
Currently have.
Yes, and we would
And
move
the,
that.
and
And
the
hopefully we work with the school district to do more of that adult ed through CNA here.
and I appreciate your, handout here, and it's much different than it was 2 years ago because it's not requesting funds as you remember with the hospital, and I appreciate that very much. I don't have any other further questions, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for Barrett Wells? Okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Dr.
Would you be open to a duel?
As long as I was Aaron Burr.
Discussion of the board.
I'd like to hear my fellow board members' comments, please.
I'll start. So my biggest complaints in the 9 years that I've been on this board is how slow government works. I'm glad that tonight we're hopefully making some pretty good progress, even though we've been here for over 2 hours now, and I'll stay another 2 if that's what it takes. But, I think like Dr. Barrett said, they requested, I think it was the second RFP that we sent out, the first quarter of 2022, 3 years ago. That was for the main building. Obviously, that didn't work out. We asked if they would be interested in other properties when the time comes. Sure, absolutely, they would. We, moved forward, and the county asked. I believe it was beginning of 23. I believe is whenever the county, January of 24, 25. About the 2-story women's center building. I had concerns at that time, and I'm the one that delayed it a little bit because, to me, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to put court administrators into the 2-story women's center building, which is set up as a doctor's office. Asked if there would be any interest in, vacant property so the building could be built. And they said, no, it would take too long. Well, here we are a year later. That building probably could have been built by now. So to me, that 2-story women's center building is still set up as a medical office. It makes sense for it to go to something medical related. As a taxpayer of Columbia County, I think, again, I'm not a contractor, but I feel like renovating this building for office space would be a lot less expensive than renovating the 2-story women's center building for office space. If the 2-story women's center building works better for the college and they're doing medical education, I feel like that would be a better fit than, other properties, this building, vacant properties, whatever it may be. I want to be a good neighbor. I want to be open to it. We do share same constituents, just like we do with the school board and part of Lake City and part of Fort White and all these others. That's a valid point, but again, our mission is to care for the indigent of Columbia County and educate them out of being indigent. And I just think that it would be a better fit for Florida Gateway College to get that 2-story women's center built. Now, I don't know how long it would take to build a building, but if we go another 1.5 miles, 3 miles away from here and build something to enter into a contract with Palms, we got 3 buildings now that we can divvy up between. So, that's kind of where I stand. I just think that it would make more sense. I think it would be a better fit for the college to get that building. I think it would be less of a burden on the taxpayers to renovate this building that's already an office building. There's 2 big rooms upstairs that could be split into, offices. This room that could be a conference room or act as a courtroom or whatever, whatever they wanted to do with it, but I feel like it would be, I'm trying to stay within my 3 minutes. I feel like that would be a better fit because it's a medical office.
Is there any, Mr. Kraus, would you think the county would, could utilize this building for the needs that y'all have? With the courts?
With modification.
Would you have to modify the 2-story women's center building?
Not really. I mean, a little bit, but not much. Mostly your work on the 2-story building would be replacing the air conditioners, making the elevators up to code, cleaning out the debris and brush that's between it and the retaining walls. That's more of a maintenance type thing. You've got the clinical rooms. You just remove the medical equipment and put in desks.
I recall there's some nice colored subway tiles on the wall, so I don't know.
You do have the lead lined rooms too. But we have that at the supervisor of elections office as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kennedy.
Mr. Kraus, correct me if I'm wrong, when you were at the podium, you had mentioned that there was a possibility that you could move county staff into this building and let the courts have the space at the, what I call the old post office building. That space, is that a possible option for you and Mr. Kirby to look at?
That has not been presented to the board, so that would take the board to decide they wanted to relocate the county office.
Well, let me rephrase it. From your, knowing this building here, the size of it, and being able to go upstairs to the old jail cells and make office cubicles, real nice office space, would it be similar square footage that could suffice?
Well, because,
A lot more cost to the taxpayer.
yeah,
A lot
I
more
mean-
cost to the taxpayers, and I understand that, Commissioner Ford, I appreciate that, yeah.
you've got
Have you had
tax collector and the property appraiser, which because of the drive-through would not be able to move.
Right. What, and out of curiosity, because I shouldn't even ask the question, but what are the plans across the street with the old Lake City Reporter building?
So the goal is always been to move planning and zoning.
Yes, sir.
Create a one-stop shop. In fact,
Yes,
we
sir.
originally proposed that for the physical therapy building way back when we made the original proposals. But we would move planning and zoning and the Department of Health over there to operate a one-stop shop. Additionally, there's a possibility of putting in a commission chambers.
I would like to be able to, and I guess, thank you, Mr. Krause. I'd like to be able to accommodate both entities, governmental entities, to be quite frank with you. And the only reason why, if I was with the county, and thank God I'm not, but if I was with the county, I like this facility. Mr. Williams, you and I have talked about this, because in addition, they could have the storage facility behind us, which they could use to renovate and put Mr. Swisher, maybe he doesn't need all that space out there for storage, but that would be additional space. And even look at giving the county the lot just north of us here, the vacant lot there, where they could use for future growth, whether it be building or parking or both. Yeah. And that's my only concern there. And then I was looking at the college for the facility, and then whatever we decide to do tonight, we need to give the representatives from both the college and from the county Mr. Arline's business card, because they're going to probably need to confer with him also.
Sure.
Not trying to get you any business or anything.
From
the issue with the city.
Mr. Chair, if I may, my question will be directed to somebody from the county. Just curious if there's been engineers involved to get a cost estimate on either of the buildings. as far as, I mean, do we know, why would it be more of a cost for this building that's already, that, again, I'm not a contractor, but it just doesn't make, I'm a simple-minded individual. And making an office building into an office building seems like it would be cheaper than making a medical facility into an office building.
I think, but again, I've not had a chance to actually price out what it would take to convert the building. The difference is here you would have to build offices. You have to make sure it works with the HVAC, the electrical, computers, all that sort of fun stuff. The other building is already in spaces that could be offices. So you're not building that, instead you're doing more of the maintenance type. Beyond that, I defer to Mr. Ford.
Well, and before Mr. Foreman speaks, the only information that I was given from our employee or building management individual is that it would be a minimum of a half to 3/4 just to get the two-story building functional. And I'm not sure if Dr. Barrett is even aware of that, if
800,000.
excuse me?
Figured about $500,000.
800,000.
800,000, yeah. And that's, that's a chunk of change compared to going in and putting petitions up, 2x4s and everything, for additional office space. And Commissioner Ford, I don't know if you've been up there, but they're just big, open, they're bigger than these rooms here. A lot bigger that could be made into 4 or 5 nice offices.
Yeah, I haven't been in that building over there. But
No, I was talking about this.
I have toured this building here.
Yeah.
A couple times, yeah.
And know the, over here above Dale's office, how big that is. And then back over here to the Suite 101 area and the upstairs there.
I believe the court said they had about, 40 or 50 folks out at the 32 folks.
I know I talked to the courts today, after their tour, and they did tell me that it would be sufficient. That they weren't able to get into the facility there, but again, to my fellow board members, I'd like to see us accommodate both these fine entities and as Dr. Barrett stated, this board sent me to the college 2 years ago, which I did. I went to see Mr. Pinchok with the Gateway Foundation, Florida Gateway Foundation, and they were interested in property that because we turned them down from the hospital. So I'd like to be able to accommodate both agencies myself.
Dr. Barrett,
And this is the Lakeshore Hospital Authority's decision, but I think it might be a good idea for us, at least Mr. Kraus and I, here, the county commissioners would be willing, and I know my trustees would be, to sit down and potentially talk about long-term plans for this campus. Understanding that it's your campus, because it seems like there's some potential there when I hear about the Department of Health and, I know the previous department director wanted to do dental work there and so forth. So as we talked about it, if they're going to move that or something, that building then becomes potential. There's some long-term, I think, plans that maybe both entities have, and I would ask that maybe we sit down between the next meeting, the county and the college, to sit down and see if we can kind of create it, because we want a vibrant downtown that helps this area, and that's what this is all about. So I would offer that as a potential.
Could you do it within 2 weeks?
We can do it. I think we're willing to sit down for 2. I mean, I know the college would be. I would just ask the county to sit down.
Our next meeting's on the 10th.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say that because I think we might be able to come to at least some understanding between the two of us. Maybe
Just for clarification, when we say the health department, we're talking about the environmental.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
And keep in mind,
still vacating space.
and keep in mind, to my fellow board members, with the entities to get together with Mr. Williams, because there may be some other properties that we can help, that they'd be interested in for future development too. Am I correct?
You're correct. May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Rocky, is the county going to try and provide FDEP a office for doing septic tank permit issuance So,
That's what that's a discussion right now.
well, that, look, that doesn't mean much when you say it, but that's important, and that's certainly something that I think we should be glad the county's doing. Otherwise, we're going to be the ones inconvenienced and possibly having to go to Alachua County to get a simple permit, because not all of them can be applied for electronically. So I think that's important, and obviously that's something that they're already on top of, but things like that, they help the community in the long run.
If I could, Mr. Chair, like I said, we provide roofs over a lot of different agencies. We're trying to expand our inventory so that, as Mr. Kennedy indicated, that, this building becomes part of our inventory. That's our objective. What ultimately goes in here, we'll figure that out. We're just trying. It gives me heartburn that we spend $62,000 to rent a private building.
Yeah.
All the way across town.
It does. Trust me.
We got places
That one
right
hits home.
Yeah.
So whatever we can do to get inventory back in the county, under the county's wing, so we can start.
Would that include vacant lots?
Sure. Like I said, we bought that recorder building because we are constantly looking for square footage, so we can do things like Dale indicated. When the state says we need a spot for it, we have a place to put it. So we're trying to, that's all we're trying. If we can all be down here, that'd be one. Get 300 or 400 more people to work downtown Lake City, I think it'd be good for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, because we got 180
Right
coming.
now, it's basically in a closet.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Well,
Only thing I was gonna throw out that I haven't heard yet, and I just wanted y'all to keep aware, the reason too for the women's building, the reason I'm still saying, hang on, let's give the college a fair shake, is because there's stuff that's in there, lead line rooms, things like that. Once that's gone, it's
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
And that's that medical specialist that's put in there, that it's, that's all brand new over here. It could be retrofitted and reused over there.
Yeah.
That's the only concern I have. So I think, I don't know, I don't speak for everybody, but I think we're probably gonna say, if y'all can get together and come up with a plan, that might be, we may just, to me, it makes sense to take, I'm trying not to speak for everybody. To me, it makes sense to table this for 2 weeks while the county and the college work their magic and figure out which one's beneficial for both. But I'd be happy to take both these buildings and pass them personally, even though I don't get a vote.
In addition to some properties.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate the county being here tonight as well as the college, both of them, and I would like to point out to everybody in the room who are taxpayers, and Mr. Powell, I want to toot your horn, but because of your great wisdom on investing the money of the hospital authority, this authority still has in the bank over 19 million. And I think that that the county residents have seen with our millage rate that we have levied for the last several years at 0.00001, and the fact that we do not give money away when people request it, that we are good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars, and we plan to continue to be. And we're unpaid.
All right. So we can get back with you folks, or y'all can coordinate with Dale, and Dale, you can coordinate with Mr. Kraus and
Sure.
Dr. Barrett. And then let's see if we can come up with something agreeable to present. Now we don't have to we're obviously gonna re-advertise that, but we can re-advertise the same bullet point for the next meeting, and we can still take action.
These items that you have remanded to the February 10th agenda will be on that agenda.
Okay.
So there will be no special advertising required.
Okay, perfect. And that's unless anybody's got any comments, that's the plan moving forward.
We're still gonna go down to the next bullet point about declaring this building surplus and.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, I'm trying to limit it to one at a
Or
time.
do you want to do that, or as it's related to the previous action, just move it forward to the next agenda?
We're here, let's do it.
Yeah,
I think let's do it.
let's do it, so it won't have to be added on the agenda, yeah.
So we'll move on to the next item. And that is to remand this as what is it, surplus?
Yes.
Okay. So
Public comment.
I'm sorry, is that this? Okay, I'm just making sure it's off of the lights.
It was this building, the parking lot behind it, and the storage building.
Okay. That's all this one. So before we do that, I'm gonna open this up for public comments. Ms. Lemon.
Since things are being delayed and changed. Dr. Barrett originally, I guess, had an interest in the physical therapy building, correct?
The hospital.
The hospital.
Okay, but was there ever an interest in having the PT building?
We did look at it, but I thought it was already taken.
Well, it's not taken, and I'd rather have the college have that rather than expend thousands and thousands of dollars for Palms Medical. She didn't say why, remember, it didn't say why she wanted that building, services, and I just think it would be in poor judgment to give that to her at the next meeting when Dr. Barrett could use the PT building since she didn't know it was available. Thank you.
Mr. Kraus.
This is just to reiterate what was said earlier.
Yes, sir.
If you're going to do this building and the record storage building, the empty lot behind it would probably be very useful for parking because this building does not have a lot of parking. And no matter what you put in here, it's going to require parking. And since the other parking lot has now been going a different direction, the extra lot would be nice to be kept with it.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Chair, if I may, that was gonna be in my board member comments at the end. The rest of the properties should be on an upcoming agenda as well.
Yeah.
I agree.
Any other further public comments? All right, so. Comment from the board.
Here, I make a motion to declare the Lakeshore Hospital Administrative Building, which is 00-00-00-12071-000 as surplus property.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to declare the Lakeshore Hospital Authority Administrative Building surplus. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, on to our next item, discussion and possible action, approval if necessary to request Toys for Tots Partnership for Strong Families. Given 30 days written notice to vacate Suite 101.
I think,
Is that gonna
Mr. Chairman, technically you just gave instruction when you declared it surplus.
okay,
There are two current users, which we will now notify that this building has been declared surplus and is planned for disposition.
okay.
As you can see from my note, one requires a 30-day written notice and the other just simply is going to require notice.
Okay.
2 or 3, isn't the tobacco people use this occasionally building? Monthly also.
They come in and
Yeah.
just use different parties related to some form of medical education or what have you, that we allow them to use the large conference rooms upstairs.
Once a month or whatever.
Yeah, but there's no charge and there's no
Right.
contract for those.
Do we need to notify them?
Well, I think it would just be neighborly to
Yeah.
say, look, this building's not gonna be available. So you might wanna look for another meeting space.
Then the other one would be the University of Florida.
Exactly.
Thank you, sir.
So we actually don't need to. It's a moot point. So we can just direct Gail to notify them that we've declared this as surplus and move on.
Alright.
Perfect. All right, on to our next item, discussion of possible action, the LSHA record storage building, these two options.
Well, again, some of the discussion that you just had somewhat alters the agenda. We are talking about including what we call the record storage building in whatever decisions are made regarding FGC in Columbia County about the use of the property. So if it transfers ownership, there's not going to be an issue for the authority any longer in terms of the lease. But for what it's worth, the lease didn't begin the way it was written until September of this past year. So they are not in violation of the lease. But if you're gonna transfer this and it ends up going to one of those two entities, then it's no longer an authority issue anyway, so.
So we.
But you will need to
Make
declare it
sure.
surplus.
I thought that was included
No,
based on this drawing, but I was
Yeah.
wrong. I apologize.
no.
So second bullet item under the record storage building, we need to take public comment on.
Yeah, let's do public comment on this right now. In case anyone has anything to say.
Give it away.
I'm glad you're as tired as we are. All right. Wishes of the board.
Here, I make a motion that we declare parcel 00-00-00-12071-002 the surplus property.
Also known as a storage facility.
Have a motion and a second to declare the storage facility administrative office building surplus, is that correct? Yes,
And the parking lot.
and the parking lot. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, on to the next item, Lake Shore Hospital Authority Maintenance Building, northeast corner of the campus.
We mentioned this earlier. This is the metal building that is on the northeast corner of the campus. Far northeast corner. This is the building that we told Columbia EMS that we would work out a lease with them if they wanted to house an EMS station there. As of today, they have not. I tried to call and get an update from them as to their interest, but have not received a return call as of yet. But at the end of the day, we can continue to hold this building to see what they want to do, or you can just say enough times elapsed that you're no longer interested in that. That's totally up to you. If you should allow this opportunity, if you should discontinue negotiating this lease with Columbia EMS, I would suggest that corner simply go back into the dedication to Meridian. I don't see any reason you'd want to hold this one small building out. I would just put it back into the Meridian limits of the property and include it with that lease or that transfer.
Public comments on the maintenance building?
Good afternoon again, good evening, maybe good night soon. If Toby and EMS doesn't want it, offer that to Miss Mayo for her pharmaceutical purposes.
Any
I'll
further,
give it to Meridian, they don't need everything.
any further public comments? Wishes of the board? We want to give him a few days? Just call him up, see what he's doing?
I mean, do you think you could get an answer from him by the next meeting on what his time frame is and see, I mean, if he thinks he's gonna need it within 3 months, 6 months, 10 years, I mean.
Yeah,
We need some sort of deadline to know what we're working with, and
We did go through the trouble to write the lease.
we did.
Okay, so the direction is I need to have an answer from them by February 10th.
Yeah, and I think no answer is also an answer.
Okay.
Any other further comments on the board on that item? Okay. And then on to our vacant lots.
I just need to point out here, Mr. Chairman, trustees, as we enter into this 126 process, or excuse me, 164 process that Mr. Arline explained earlier, I think these become, for lack of better words, the bargaining chips. I think these are what will really end up being discussed in that 164 hearing. So I just want to make you aware of that. I think that's what Mr. Kennedy is going to see when we get in that room. And I'm basing that solely on what I'm hearing. So,
Public comment on any of these, parcels? Anybody? Sure. Bueller? All right.
I also want to point out in your packet there, if you'll look at F2. That is an 11.2 acre parcel of land. It is the furthest east parcel owned by the authority. It has received no attention whatsoever from a discussion standpoint. It's the other side of the 3 lots which you're going to include in the conveyance to Meridian. It is there. It is sort of forgotten. People don't speak about it. It has access to it from Lake Drive. I have actually rode out there to see what it looked like. Obviously, you can tell from the aerial it has a considerable amount of wetland on it. But there does appear to be some higher elevations closer to the street. But anyway, that's a parcel that you may end up declaring surplus and just seeing if we can hire a realtor or someone to see if there's anyone interested. Nobody's spoken for that. Nobody's asked for it.
Comments from the board?
Do we need to declare these surplus properties tonight?
No, not tonight, but it is on that list, and that was number 8 on the list, so I wanted to point it out because we've never discussed it before.
Those parcels 1 through 12 on F1 is what we transferred to the city at one point.
No, not all of those, no,
Yeah, yeah.
There's 15 of them,
yeah.
15.
I thought it was only 12 lots that we transferred to the city.
Yeah, but on this, F1, there's a total of 15 lots that we're looking at left that have to declare surplus.
Yeah.
Those 12 lots that the city had in the interlocal agreement were never declared surplus.
Right, and what is identified as parcel 13, 14, and 15,
Yes, sir.
and what is identified as 12069,
Yes, sir.
they were never in the original lease
Thank you. Okay,
or the original proposal with the city.
exactly.
14 to 15 is what you're interested in, right, Mr. Kraus, the parking?
Yes.
North of here.
That would be 13.
Is it 13?
It's
Yes.
14 and
14
15
and
too.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. 13 is north of the,
Yeah, what's 13? Is that just a vacant lot?
It's the half lot,
That's
which
right.
is directly behind the old Gabby grocery building.
Okay. And the city at one point had what, 1 through 5,
no,
6,
1
7,
through
and 8?
12.
Oh, 1 through 12. They had it all. Okay.
I also think 13 could be of benefit to the Columbia County Public Health Unit. It's right across the street.
Yes. And then 14 and 15 would go, we could look at going with this building here. If I'm not mistaken, I had the acreage on those. Are those?
It tells you right there.
Excuse me?
It tells you right there.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
Dale's
you.
got it listed.
Thank you, Mr. Bullard.
Well,
Very much. Can I borrow your glasses?
0.485, 0.485 for 14 and 15, 13's 0.505.
So us declaring them surplus tonight is not going to swing anything one way or the other
Yeah.
right now.
I would recommend that you wait until the 164 process is complete.
Okay.
And if I might add, Mr. Arline and Mr. Kennan, hopefully we won't have to go through the 164, that we can get them to agree to a letter to be signed by all, that's all. And we can maybe, in your discussions with Mr. Martin, let them know that I'm speaking for myself, but that we would like to hear what their thoughts are regarding these available lots that we have. You know, would love to hear any type of discussion, communication from them. I stand ready, willing, and able.
Agree.
Ask a question.
Yes.
That be all of the parcels 1 through 8 or the 15? Or the 1 through 12?
Yeah, with the 1 through 12 on there, you can have this if you like it.
Got it.
Oh, you do? Yeah, 1 through 12 is what the interlocal back in 2020, February of 2020. I wasn't on the board then, but that's the interlocal agreement, which Mr. Kennan is very much aware of.
Unless there's any further discussion on that. Move on to the community health needs assistance.
Dale, real quick question. Adjacent to 8, is that the old Darby Field house or is that another building?
Adjacent to 8,
100.
just to the
border.
south of 8 is
Yeah.
that old beauty shop. It's a beauty salon.
It's still there.
It's still there. It's not part of the hospital property. And just to the east is the parking lot, the paved parking lot for the public health unit.
He wouldn't sell it to Jack.
It wouldn't be shaken down, that's why.
Okay, I just.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, trustees, we received 6 or 7 responses to the Community Health Needs Assessment RFP. To the best of my knowledge, I believe only 2 of those are responsive. We will double check to make sure, but I believe that is the case. We intend to evaluate those and maybe bring back a recommendation on the 10th. Where you can consider whether you wish to proceed with this project or not. So that was the update. And also, to the best of my knowledge, this agenda touched, or at least tried to touch on every single issue that was out there in front of the authority. I think that's what the task was. I think that's what I was assigned to do. But that's why those things were there. So if you resolve all these issues, you'll be up to date and we can do other things.
We'll have what wasn't resolved tonight on the next.
They will be on the agenda. Yes, sir.
Keep judging through. Any comments from the board or any public comments on the RFP?
Yes.
Hit.
I was here when Mr. Williams and Tanya opened those and only 2 fully complied. And problem I see is the authority has rules, but they don't follow. If you didn't meet it, you shouldn't even be considered. And Florida, who does this stuff, didn't even respond or weren't even asked or was not made aware of it. So if you're gonna have a do-over, Florida should present something because we already pay money to them.
Thank you, Ms. Sumner. Mr. Loker.
Thanks, I hate to do this. What I don't understand is, this is like the for the 5th RFP. You have attorneys that work here, you have outside attorneys. We have a financial advisor, an accountant, something else, auditor, or something else, I don't know everything. Sounds like a song. And every time the rules for RFPs haven't been followed, it's okay to email, it's okay to send it in late. This has historically been the practice and technically policy of this board. Now, I requested all the responses today, but all of a sudden we have I don't know, 5 respondents or something to the RFP. And now only 2 are responsive. Every other time, the board has decided whether or not to allow those responses to be considered. And I'm just asking you to think about this, because that has not been, Mr. Bullard, I don't think he was here for most of these. That this has been the practice and policy of the board. The authority manager writes an RFP, they get open, stuff gets emailed in late, and everybody gets considered. And now we have a change of policy, which doesn't seem fair to the people that responded. All of a sudden, now you're gonna follow the rules, and that's just what I have to say. Sorry to add more to the length of this meeting.
Still appreciate it, Mr. Bowman. Any further public comments on it? Any board member comments on that specific item? Any board member comments in closing, Mr. Kennedy?
See you in 2 weeks.
I would like to personally thank Dale and
Yes.
Todd for putting together the monster.
Yes.
Hats off, this one hell of a packet. Try not to do it to you too much.
We like not to have made that advertising deadline.
That's a pile of
Did a great
stuff.
job.
Pile of stuff. We'll try and cut it down.
And Mr. Arline, good to meet you.
Well,
No, I don't have anything.
yeah.
I'm good, thank you. I'm glad, I agree. I think we're finally to the point of being able to get this stuff done, and I thank our executive director and attorney and Ms. Markham, who made sure we had cookies tonight, for getting all this done for us.
I forgot to thank you, Simon. All right. We're adjourned. Thank you.
So